This is the Broadway Studio blueprint for how to fail at Broadway in 10 easy steps. So if I wanted to keep one of my students from making it to Broadway, these are the 10 things that I would teach them to do. My name's Colt. I've been on Broadway for 15 years. I've performed for pop icons like Pink and Taylor Swift, and I am currently playing Kasim in Disney's Aladdin on Broadway. This is literally my dressing room. And I've got a show coming up, so let's dive in. This idea comes from Charlie Munger, who's a famous, super legendary businessman, but he actually borrowed it from a mathematician named Carl Jacobi, who said, invert. Always invert. And what does that mean? It means we can solve really big, overwhelming problems by just flipping the equation. Instead of asking, how do I get to Broadway, which immediately becomes a really overwhelming task to try and unravel, let's just flip it. Let's ask, how do I not make it to Broadway? And suddenly the answer becomes way more clear. Brilliant! So if I wanted to give one of my students at the Broadway Studio advice on how to fail to make it to Broadway, here's exactly what I'd tell them. Number one, let's start with the most obvious way to fail. Don't train. Skip acting classes, skip vocal classes, definitely don't take any dance lessons. And if you learn a different style of dance, so help me. If you avoid training, you can dodge the hard work of learning how to tell a story, and you'll also miss out on learning the basics of your craft, which is perfect if you're looking to stay far away from Broadway. And don't just avoid training yourself, don't even watch others. Definitely don't go to YouTube and watch old Tony performances or watch any interviews on YouTube about these people that created the stories. You don't want to do that because you might accidentally pick up some good habits, and we don't want that. Here's the secret. Broadway performers are professionals, and that word, professional, means they have put in years of training to hone their craft. So if you want to fail, the easiest way to do it is to stay exactly where you are, don't go any further, and never take steps to improve. Whew. Okay, I know that was a little bit intense, but we got through number one. Don't train. Let's move on to number two. Definitely be unprepared. Preparation? Ha, who needs it? If you want to fail at becoming a Broadway performer, best way to do that is to show up absolutely unprepared for every audition. Don't practice your sides or your songs, and walk into that audition room with the utmost confidence that's completely unearned, that confidence of someone who thinks, well, my natural gifts alone, they'll carry me through. Spoiler, it won't. Broadway auditions aren't just about singing the notes and saying the lines. They're about making bold choices that you believe in, telling the story the way you've interpreted it, and hoping that's what matches what they want on the other side of the table. Not because it's right or wrong, but just because that's what they were thinking. You want to show that you understand the character and present something unique to you. But hey, if your goal is failure, don't think at all about anything, not motives or relationships or what you're going to do or what the lines are or what the song is. Just wing it. Because here's the reality. Being unprepared doesn't just hurt your chances of getting the role. It also shows the casting team that you don't appreciate their time or the craft itself. And if you can't respect the process, Broadway will never respect you, which is perfect if you want to fail. See what I'm doing? Number three. Okay, this is one of my favorites. Be late. Punctuality is for suckers. If you want to fail at Broadway, make it a habit of being late for auditions or rehearsals. And if you really want to fail, be late for shows. No, God, please, no! Bonus points if when you walk in, you don't even acknowledge you're late. You're all lucky I'm here. You want to give that vibe. Being late, once again, tells the casting and creative teams that you don't respect their time or the opportunity. Broadway operates at the highest level like a well-oiled machine. 6 seconds, McGruber! Every second counts. 2 seconds, McGruber! So if you're late, you're throwing a wrench into the whole system before anything even started. Boom! Oh, explosion! Here's the thing. Being early is a sign of respect. It also gives you time to center yourself, review the material, and walk in calm and confident. So if you're serious about failing at Broadway, you want to skip all of that and just, show up when you want. You're all lucky I'm here. Next up, number 4, don't be off book. Memorization's overrated, right? Nothing says I'm connecting with my audience and care very much about this opportunity by doing this. Don't you guys agree? I feel really connected to you. If you want to fail, keep your eyes glued to the script or score the whole time at your audition. And don't bother learning your lines or lyrics ahead of time. After all, if you learn your lines, you might actually come across as professional. Being off book isn't just about memorization. It's about internalizing the material. When you know the words inside and out, you free up your mind to focus on the performance. There's a great story about Anthony Hopkins. He's there the first day. They turned to him and they said, man, I can't believe some of these people have read this script 2 or 3, maybe even 20 times before the first rehearsal. Crazy, right? Sir Anthony Hopkins turns to them and says, that is insane. I can't imagine coming to the first day of rehearsal without having read the script 100 times. So when you know the words inside and out, you free up your mind to focus on the performance itself and the story that you're telling that only you can tell. But if your goal is failure, you keep yourself tethered to that page. Remember, Broadway performers are expected to be at the top of their game, and sometimes you're gonna get an audition the night before. No,
God, please, no!
And they're not going to expect you to be off book, but that doesn't mean when they say don't be off book that you don't have to look at it at all. You should still be as familiar as possible with the material, but they acknowledge that, hey, we just gave this to you, do what you can with it. However, if you were given the material days or weeks in advance and you still can't be bothered to memorize it, you're sending a message that you're definitely not ready for Broadway, which is exactly the goal, right? Moving on, number 5, don't take direction. If you want to fail and a director gives you direction, the worst thing you can do is listen and then apply it. Instead, you want to stick to your guns. Keep doing things the way you were doing them before. Even better, nod and say, sure, yeah, I'll try that. And then do it exactly the same that you did before. They love that. Taking direction is one of the most critical skills that we have as Broadway performers. Directors aren't just testing your adaptability, they also really often want to see if you can collaborate and help them bring their vision to life. When you get to Broadway, you're going to realize all of it is about teamwork. And if you can't show that you're willing to adjust and grow, you're telling them you don't care about anything else or anyone else. You're telling them it's your way or the highway. Great acting, Colt. Wouldn't take direction on that.
Cut, Fred, check the gate, moving on.
By refusing to take direction, you're sending a clear message. I'm uncoachable, and nothing screams, don't cast me, louder than that. So if you're trying to fail at Broadway, I want you to dig your heels in and show everybody you're nobody's team player. Get out of here, team. This is the me show.
Look at me!
Now, if you are still here and you are digging what we are talking about, we just opened a brand new area of my private training company, the Broadway Studio, that might be right for you. After you check out the rest of these tips, I want you to head over to thebroadwaystudio.com and apply to see if you're ready to train with us and get yourself to Broadway in record time. Now, on to tip number 6. Don't be charismatic. Who needs charisma? If you want to fail, make sure you bring absolutely no energy, no enthusiasm, and no connection to your audience or your performance as a whole. Treat every moment on stage as if it's just another day in the office. Make sure you don't move your face too much. Give as little energy as possible. Keep your emotions flat, and make sure that your eyes are never looking directly at your scene partner so that you don't accidentally connect with them. Charisma isn't about being over the top or fake. It's about being authentic and present and fully engaged with what you're doing and the people in front of you. So if you want to fail, ignore all that. Make yourself as forgettable as possible. After all, the less that people remember you, the better chance you have at staying off Broadway. Number 7, don't work on weaknesses. Right? If you want to fail, ignore your weaknesses. If you can't hit those high notes, don't go to a vocal coach and try to figure out how to hit them. You just keep doing whatever it is that is. If you're doing a dance and the lines and the turns are sloppy, don't bother cleaning it up. Who cares? Just convince yourself that everything's fine. The problem's not you. It's the casting team or something else. It's not me. The problem's not me. That's all I know. I'm just saying it's not me. Great performers are constantly finding their weaknesses and then working on them. They're taking the time to look in the mirror and honestly identify what their shortcomings are and do whatever it takes to improve. We're seeking out feedback and coaches, and we're taking classes, and we're putting in the hours to turn those weaknesses into strengths. But if you're aiming to fail, skip all that. You stay in your comfort zone, you avoid challenges, and you let your weaknesses hold you back. So otherwise, you might make it to Broadway. We wouldn't want that. Number 8, we're closing in. Be impatient. Patience is a virtue you definitely don't need as long as you want to fail. You should expect to book your first Broadway show within weeks of starting your journey. And if that doesn't happen, well, as I've always said, give up immediately. The truth is, Broadway success rarely happens overnight. And most of the time, the overnight successes that you see have actually been working really, really hard for like 10 plus years before that. Sometimes way longer. It takes years of hard work and training and persistence to make it to Broadway. You will face rejection after rejection, and I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes like it sucks. But the key is to keep going. So if you wanna fail, you just throw in the towel.
Think I'm throwing in the towel.
Soon as things don't go as quickly as you want them to. Patience and perseverance are the cornerstone of any successful career. So skip those entirely if you want to fail to be on Broadway. Number 9, be entitled. Entitlement's a fantastic way to fail at being on Broadway. Act like you're owed a spot on that stage simply because you showed up. And remember, entitled performers often refuse to take criticism or take responsibility for their mistakes or their shortcomings. Instead, they blame the industry or the casting team or the director or even their fellow performers for their own mistakes. Humility, on the other hand, is what opens doors. It allows you to learn and connect with others in the industry. But if you want to fail, you keep that sense of entitlement alive and well. Maybe that'll pay the bills. Moving on to the last one. This is the absolute best / worst one. Bash other performers and creatives. If you want to guarantee that your Broadway career never takes off or at least doesn't get to where you want it to, spend as much of your time as possible tearing others down. It's a big community. Who's ever going to hear it? You want to criticize your fellow performers, badmouth directors, and complain about choreographers. Gossip as much as you can.
You'll never guess what I know. Okay, let me finish this thought.
It's a surefire way to make yourself unwelcome in the industry. Broadway is a really small, tight-knit community. Your reputation is everything, and word travels frighteningly fast. Texting and social media, you say something at the beginning of a show, it's at another show before intermission. So if you're known as someone who brings negativity and drama, people will start avoiding working with you. And here's the thing, casting directors call performers they know to get recommendations on other performers. I've had it happen to me, I've had it happen about me. Now that doesn't mean that the casting director takes that under advisement, but if they called you in the first place, probably does. On the flip side, lifting others up and being a positive presence can do wonders for you. Celebrate your castmates' successes, not just to get ahead. Thank your creative team and focus on building genuine, strong, long-lasting relationships. But if your goal is failure, stick to bashing. It's a perfect way to burn bridges. Don't even need fire. Now, before we invert these and figure out how to get to Broadway, let's do a quick recap. If you want to fail at Broadway, here's your 10-step guide. Don't train. Be unprepared. Be late. Don't be off book. Ignore direction. Don't be charismatic. Don't work on your weaknesses. Be impatient. Be entitled. And bash others. But let's set the sarcasm aside and invert that, because I want nothing more than to see you succeed and make it to Broadway. So if the last 10 things were the best ways to fail at Broadway, here's the top 10 things that I myself do and that I train all of my students to do to make it to Broadway. 1, train consistently. 2, be prepared. 3, be on time. 4, if you can, be off book. 5, take direction. 6, learn to be charismatic. 7, work on your weaknesses. 8, be patient. 9, stay humble. And 10, lift others up. So now that you know the top 10 things that I did that I would recommend to make it on Broadway, the only question left is, how do you get there? Well, that's where the Broadway Studio comes in. We work with performers just like you to help you master your craft and reach your Broadway dreams. Check out thebroadwaystudio.com and see if we're the right fit for you. And if not, keep checking out all the videos here. I got a show to do. I will see you on Broadway.